And now, live from the Tanzu TV studios, it's Tanzu Tuesdays with your host, Robert Burley.
That's it. We did it. We got an intro music.
It worked. It's amazing.
Woohoo! Thank you, Paul, for fixing that up.
It's only taken us 6 weeks to get it right.
What?
And even
That's
then,
right.
we got your name wrong.
It's I mean, even on my my Zoom meeting right now, it says Robert Brinley, so I'll have to change that. Welcome, everybody. Tanzu Tuesday coming at you live. Pow, pow, pow. How are you? Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see some of your regular chats on the side here soon. We're very happy and honored to have another amazing presenter today. Let's first introduce Tiffany and Paul, of course, with us. We had Paul last week as an actual presenter, but he's back hosting, and so is Tiffany Jernigan. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Fine. You have all the microphone in your
Yeah, right. The microphone's bigger than he is.
We call that perspective, which reminds me of Disneyland because of forced perspective, which is a place where nobody can go to. Thanks, Tiffany. I blame you. No.
You're welcome.
Well, welcome
Welcome
to month 9 of quarantining. Hope everybody's quarantining safely. You might say, Bob, why are you wearing a hat? Well, my wife and I, my coworker and I, were trying a new haircut, and it didn't work out so great. So, boom, quarantine cut. There it is, the quarantine cut. I like how Mario went to
trying to not giggle at you real hard.
You can giggle. It is what it is. It's just funny. It's like it's one of those things where like your hairline is like receding and everything like that, but only during the corn cut do you get the deep V going. You're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, you have to cut it special to like avoid that. That's the thing.
Well, yeah. That's what the whole comb over is for. And...
No, you don't have to do that. You just make sure it's longer on the parts that are further back.
There it is.
I've had to do this before.
All right. Well, when the quarantine's over, I'll come to you for a haircut. But I also figured it'd be a good time to wear my Halo hat.
Yes.
We've been discussing Halo hats, so I've got hats. I rarely wear them, so now it's a good time to wear hats. All right. Enough about me and hats and everything else. Let's get to our presenter, Mario Gray. Welcome to the show. How are you today? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, howdy. How you doing?
Thank you for the three hellos, which we just talked about community. And Vaughn always does the 3 hellos.
Yes. Konnichiwa.
How you doing? Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, it's good to see you. Who do you have with you? Who's your co-pilot, your Chewbacca, if you will?
This is a Ferry. That his name is Ferris. He's been Ferry for about 8 years now.
Oh,
and poor little Ferry, he knows that there's a snack here because my keyboard smells of meat. So if he begins to viciously attack me while I'm typing, then you know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's time to pay up, right?
You should probably stop hiding his dog treats under your keyboard.
Yeah.
I mean,
is it normal for your keyboard to smell like meat?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I eat sandwiches all day, so when I'm not like when I'm on the keyboard, I'm just sitting here with a snack, and I've got like all sorts of. If you look at my keyboard, it's worse than a toilet. But it's got all sorts of snacky material on it.
Well, that's a fancy little keyboard.
The deep grooves absorb everything.
Everything just the salsa gets in there, and you don't want salsa on this thing. Okay, just stay away from salsa and anything mole and God, no bacon. Eggs get inside of the keys. You don't want eggs. You don't want eggs in here.
I remember when
does clean up very well.
I remember when you brought that keyboard out for the first Spring One Tour show that you were going to use, for your live presentation, and just the hearing of it, just the clickety clack, the sound is amazing. It brings you back to the old school IBM, computer keyboards.
One of my favorites. One of my favorite sounds. I'm not sure if if you guys hear the sound too badly on the audio. Is it terrible? Because I put a pad under it to get rid of the bassiness. Since everything is on my desk and the desk travels sound very well. So I had to put some padding, and I hope you don't hear it too much.
You're pretty clicky.
Java Grunt says it's not terrible.
Okay.
So
it's not terrible.
It's obviously terrible. A mechanical keyboard.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's obviously. It's not like because I was getting that the other day.
And also, as we all know, it's all about the bass, no treble.
It's all about the bass. The bass.
Before we let you kick it off there, it's me, Mario. There are a couple of commercial things I need to say. One, hey, everybody, if you haven't submitted a talk for Spring 1, which is going virtual September 2nd and 3rd, do it. You have till May 20th, which is about another week. Is that right? Hold on. Yep, a week and a day. So you have another week to submit your talk. And again, mark a calendar for September 2nd and 3rd for the Spring 1 convention going virtual. It's supposed to be in Seattle with our friend Tiffany, but sadly we're doing it virtual. I mean, it's fine. It'll be great. And that means hopefully a lot more of you can enjoy. And there's gonna be so much amazing spring stuff, and all of your spring favorites that have been on the show now or are gonna be in the future. They're gonna be presenting. It's gonna be awesome. So mark your calendars, submit your talks. We also are starting another show called Spring 1 Tour. It's the live show I was just mentioning that Mario had his keyboard at. We took that around the world to, I think, 20 plus cities over the last several years. Again, we're going virtual. And so this year, or this month, it's happening next week. Paul, is that correct?
I believe it's happening next week.
Yeah,
May 20th and 21st.
Yeah, the 20th and 21st. Yeah, so that's next week. I should be there. I should know because I'm hosting. And so I'll be there. Nate Schutt will be there. Jakob Pilleman will be there. And we're going to be talking about cloud native architecture. And it'll be a 2-day event. So the first day, again, 9 to 9:45, kind of a nice overview. And then we're going to actually do a kata solution from 9:45 to 11. And then the next day from 9 to 10, again, all these are Pacific Standard Times. From 9 to 10 for an hour, we're going to do an Ask Me Anything with Nate and Jakob. So tune in for that. Sign up. Go to spring1tour.io for that. And also just put out there for the world, VMware has the Tanzu developer portal called tanzu.vmware.com/developer. And there's so much amazing information for all the developers to join, learn, participate, have a great time. Again, tanzu.vmware.com/developer. We did it. We did it, Mario.
Now, on that slash, does anyone else get really mad for no good reason when someone says backslash when they should say regular slash? Does that drive anyone else crazy, or is it just
You mean forward slash? Is there a regular slash?
Well, but often people say backslash.
I mean, there is a
but
regular
they
slash,
mean
and he's the
forward
lead
slash.
guitarist for Guns N' Roses. There's the slash.
Okay, it's just me then.
I honestly have never thought of it.
All right.
I've just literally never come into mind. Yeah, literally. So, but you're saying I should say /developer.
No, slash is fine. It's just occasionally you'll hear someone say like tanzuvmware.com/developer.
Mm.
And that
like, does it depend on the top or the bottom? It depends on which way it's leaning. Like the / is the Unix HTTP / and then the / is the Windows
exactly
C:/.
Yeah. And that's why I think it annoys me, because for a long time I was running both Windows and Linux stuff. So there's a very important distinction between the forward and backslash.
Spencer Gibb knows what you're talking about.
Yes,
He just said Windows users. And I'll say this. I'm going to say it. I'm not afraid. Spencer, we just locked you up for June 2nd. So we're going to have Spencer Gibb presenting about RSocket. What do you think about that, Mario? A little RSocket for you? June 2nd. Thumbs up.
Boom, 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 boom. Awesome.
Hey,
awesome.
It's the pirate's favorite socket.
Arr. Yeah.
Arr.
It's good. It's a good one. Yeah, we like that. When is International Pirate Talk Like a Pirate Day? It's coming up. I think it's in the summertime. All right. My papers are in order. All my stuff is happening. So happy. Are we ready?
September 19th.
Thank you. And Paul, Tiffany, you ready for the Mario experience?
I'm so ready for the Mario experience.
Already.
Well, thank you, everybody, again for joining us.
Geez, thanks.
Without further ado, I give you the one, the only, Mr. Mario Gray.
Hello. Hi. I'm gonna start this. Hello. Hi. How are you guys doing? Can you guys see me? Yes. Good. So I'm gonna. God, I look like a blurry mess, but I spent the last few days actually wiring my network here, my home network, with like 3 computers. So everything is Ethernet connected. Even my iPhone is connected to the internet by my my wired internet connection on my cable modem. So so bandwidth is should be plenty. There should be no like stutters on my end. But then again, I do have Spectrum, and we know that Spectrum is subject to all sorts of traffic issues. But anyway, so performance aside, I like to go through one more thing. When I was updating my Spectrum cable modem to make it go faster, so that like I don't get packet drops or I don't get issues when going to just standard web pages, like Netflix or anything with the web page that has a lot of JavaScript that takes forever to load because it just has to download so much. I found that if I turned on something called TurboDocs, that it works to make it go faster. But TurboDocs sounds really bad because when I looked at TurboDocs, I don't know what it does. All I know it's some sort of a cable modem DOSIS standard. But when I first saw it, I thought somebody hacked my modem, and I thought, oh shit, somebody's like messing with me, because it says TurboDocs. Like I don't want to get doxxed. And like, is there like literally an idea that they can steal everything from your internet? But like I know that that's not true, and so that's why I looked it up to find out whether TurboDocs is really like somebody poking fun at me or if it was an actual DOSIS standard. Yeah, it's a DOSIS standard, and if you turn it on, it prevents it prevents ACK packets from making it back into your network. And if you know anything about TCP, you'll know that TCP is really ACK friendly, really ACK happy, and what'll happen is you get a lot of your bandwidth comes from just the acknowledgement of packets. Which is why UDP is faster, because UDP doesn't acknowledge. It's just a fire and forget, right? While TCP is for every packet, it gives you an acknowledgement. Anyway, TurboDocs turns that off and it makes everything go faster by about 20%. I think it worked. Anyway, all right, let's go into this demonstration. This is Bootiful reactive testing. I'm going to switch the sharing to my window, and I hope you guys see it. Yes, good. So this is Bootiful reactive testing. This particular demo, I like this demo because some of the things that it does for me is that while I'm coding my normal projects, I get to engage the test code. So I might even go into some of my non-demo test code in order to kind of show you how I incorporated the TDD style into my own workflow. So I got the slideshow for you guys. I hope you enjoy it. It's the name of the demo is Bootiful Reactive testing and consumer-driven contracts with Spring Boot 2. This is also shown on the GitHub link here, github.com, Mario's code path, Bootiful testing. I'll post it into the Twitch chat. Ooh, go back up there. I'll post it into the Twitch chat so you guys get a chance to view it for yourselves.
I like the pixelated Twitter logo.
Thank you. Okay, so there's it in the Twitch chat. And there's a couple of things I like to talk about before I even start about myself. One of them is this guy's article on Spring Cloud Contract in a Polyglot World by Marcin Greszaszak. He's awesome. He writes lots of stuff. Many people on the Spring team are awesome. So give them a big round of applause, especially Marcin. And I think Spencer Gibbs on here, so give him a round of applause. These are really good developers, guys. The Spring Cloud Contract in a Polyglot World is a document that shows us how to take contracts, which I'll show you later, and essentially make them usable to people who aren't using just Java. So if we're normally used to like testing our code and our services in the environment that we created it in, this isn't necessarily true. So I'll get into that later, but that article tells you how to get it so that you can easily give a person who's using Python, for instance, an artifact, and then they can spin up that artifact and test their Python code against it. And that's the purpose of the polyglot components to the Spring Cloud Contract. Cloud Contract itself is a totally different idea we'll get to later. Also, I have to think about a book that I did with Spring integration. That goes a long way to the current day of RSocket and Spring Dataflow, in which we find ourselves looking again at pipes and filters and composing data streams that are basically like data going from point A to point B. It could be anything. It could be a chat feed, for instance, where you have an ingress of messages, and then you have a lot of transformations that happen, right? So, that's what an integration does, but it also does things like transactions and getting your old infrastructure and bringing it up to your current infrastructure and kind of integrating it, more of a legacy integration for people who need transactions. So those are really heavy-handed words. The Spring integration is fairly heavy, as in architectural heavy, but it's really light as well. The idea behind message channels and service activators are there. Excuse me. Hi. Oh gosh. Okay. So that's what happens when you're at home. You will get knocked on. All right. Let's move on to the next one before we run out of time of me speaking about the first slide. So we have an agenda, and that's my cron tab here. The agenda, it's not system D, not system D. I'm sorry. It's not a init. It's cron. It's not the other message framework for scheduling. It's just cron tab, and I work off of cron. So the first thing I'm going to do is reactive. I'm going to show a little bit about reactive. I'm pretty sure we're getting a lot of reactive tutorials these days, so I don't need to do too much to it, but I'm going to assume that a little bit about like JavaScript features, JavaScript promises, maybe even some async JavaScript if you're into that, or if you know async Java, or if you know Java streams or Java flow, or the feature libraries. I'm going to assume that you know a little bit about that, so I don't have to go too much into the detail about explaining how scheduling works. So I'll talk about reactive, and then I'll go into TDD and just a little bit of TDD, like some of the things that I picked up, right? I'm not sure if it's entirely correct to do TDD correctly. With any decision you make, you're going to put TDD in it, but you're not going to do like complete TDD, right? You don't do complete agile, you don't do complete waterfall even. Why would you ever be complete at any one of these? But you're going to try your best, right? So that's what we do. We try to make better decisions. At least I do. Test slices. This is a Springism. So I'm going to talk about test slices, and they are a fundamental part of this demonstration. Fundamentally, that is, most of the demo is based off of test slices. Test slicers make everything faster, which gives us accuracy because we don't have things loading up in the way of our test. Things that don't need to be loaded won't get loaded, and that's good. All right, so then there's contract, the big thing that I was talking about earlier. Contract, which is pretty big. I go for it and I say, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to describe our service, and then that description is going to create a mock service that I can give to somebody, and then they can test it. They can test it, and that mock that I talked about earlier is literally a wire mock service that exists in a jar file. It's really cool. Some cool technology. I think it's magic. If you've ever developed using npm, you've seen magic before. If you've ever used Perl or PHP or Ruby, you've probably seen magic. Well, this is actually wizardry, not magic, right? Wizardry is a little, I find it on a higher pedestal than magic. All right, so to the first slide, reactive, flow control, and asynchronous logic. Here are the basics. Here are the basics that we want to know about in our new reactive lifestyle workflow development. Right, so let's look at this. How does reactive work? What are the basics? Let's just go for the first four things that I want to talk about reactive, and then we'll talk about TDD after that. That's the top part of this is reactive, and the bottom part of this slide is basically about TDD. So number one is publisher. So the publisher is the idea that we have something that can emit a item, right? We have the idea that something is there to, for instance, publish and then feed a subscription. So a publisher automatically means that I have an idea of a subscriber, and there is that type of entity called a subscriber, in which a subscriber knows how to subscribe from a publisher. It calls its publish method, its on subscribe method. So a publisher of T is that which is just a stream. There are two implementations. If you look at this number 2 and 3, you'll see a mono and a flux. So mono is a publisher that just has one item in it, in which if you say, hey, mono of string dot do on next or on next, what will happen is it'll just emit that one item, and then that'll be it. That item is the only thing that's ever emitted ever once. Even the mono is closed, the stream gets closed once that item gets emitted. Then you have the flux Like a mono, it has an item in it, but it's 0, of course, or it's infinity. So there's no bounds to how many things can be in a flux. So you use this for creating actual long-running channels, which might behave in an inconsistent manner, or which might behave in a consistent manner. Who knows? But what you do know is that you're going to get messages, and you don't know when, and it doesn't make sense for you to create a new stream every time a message gets sent, because mono, for instance, would be what you would use in a request response, right? Where you have one request and one response, HTTP request, HTTP response, a mono of HTTP request, a mono of HTTP response. A flux, on the other hand, would be something like a flux of users. I want to do a search and I want to query, and it returns a flux of users, basically a stream of all the results from that user answer, right? And there's a way to say, I don't want every single user in the world. If you gave me all the users in the world, that's too many users, and my client will what? My client will literally clog, right? So how do we fix that? Is number 4. Number 4 is the idea behind back pressure. Back pressure is something that Reactive has. The Reactive specification has back pressure. And back pressure is basically a way of saying, okay, well, I'm a client. I don't know how much data is going to come out the pipe, but I know I can only handle 64 kilobytes of data at a time. So how do I do that? Well, if I know every packet is 1 kilobyte, then I can say request 64. And that'll just say, okay, well, it'll tell upstream, give them 64, that's all it can handle, and then he'll come back for more later on. And that's what it does. It allows me to say that. It allows me to go, okay, well, I can only handle X amount, give me X amount. And so I don't have to be overflowed, and it allows us to control the pressure on our clients. It allows us to control the pressure on our clients and the pressure on our producers. And we like that because when you have control of memory pressure, then you're able to you're able to decide what to do next. If you notice that a client is getting a lot of activity, then you might be able to spin up another client and fan out to clients, or you can choose another strategy. So I like Reactive. It helps me do a lot of things that I've always wanted to do for a high throughput or a synchronous system, but it was actually really, really hard because I had to write task schedulers, or I had to do some funky tricks with the with virtual integers, atomic integers, and do all sorts of gobbledygook, really bad, nasty stuff that ended up with a lot of bugs. And I find Reactive is a more natural way of me programming, since it also lends towards functional programming practices as well. All right, enough about Reactive for now. Now that just nothing about Reactive, that Reactive is streams and that it has back pressure, and that it's pretty cool, and that it offers like a future-like interface to the world, a promise-like interface to your programming. We can move on to TDD and testing these things. So TDD is another practice that I like. TDD is more abstract. TDD is basically test-driven programming. It basically says, I'm going to write tests first, then I'm going to fix those tests, and then I'm not going to write any more than I need to, which is why we don't want to go overboard. And then I'm going to repeat that over and over and over until I have a working product. So in other words, I'm going to write as little as anything as possible. I'm going to write little code. I used to love writing code. And I figured out that I liked writing code more than I liked making good code. Does that make sense? Yeah, I like writing code more than I like making good code. And I had to change that, and it hurt. And TDD helped me get there. And if something got me there, then maybe it'll get somebody else out there to that place where they're writing code that they believe in. All right, so let's look at TDD a little bit more in depth and see what that means. So we have 3 laws. We have Bob Martin, who's the co-signer of the Agile Manifesto, who came up with TDD and said, well, there's 3 main provisions for TDD in order for it to work correctly, and they're kind of a disciplined approach at developing. One is that you're not allowed to write any production code unless it's to make a unit test that's failing pass. So for number 1, like I said, I'll just write part of the unit test first. It'll fail because the underline will begin telling me stuff. The IDE will say, hey, this doesn't exist, or it just won't compile, or it just won't run because nothing's there. So then I'll have to go directly into production right after that to fix it. So the number 2 is you can't write any more of a unit test than is sufficient to fail. So once that thing starts failing, as soon as you know it's going to fail, if you get to a compilation failure, then that's a test failure. If you get to a red line in the IDE where something in the IDE goes, hey, this thing is like, not cogent, then that's a failure and you have to fix it in production if possible, if you didn't break the test already. And it's possible to break the test. But with TDD, I find that I break tests less. Actually, with Spring and TDD, because Spring can make TDD better, or easier to follow, right? We want to follow TDD with Spring. How do we do that without taking the whole world with us? Spring offers that. Now, I guess I'll get there later on in this demo. 3 is that you're not allowed to write a production code. Don't even write production code. Like if you don't have to write production code, you don't write production code. I realized early on that most of my code were tests. But right, so like it's the honest point, but like most of my code were tests, but everything worked because once I started writing production code, all the tests just were in line and things just started working. I was able to deploy really fast. And I felt really good about that because I didn't have to test anything in production. Things just work. If I didn't have a test for it, I'd write a test for it, make sure it worked before I put it out there. I'm able to, TDD should be able to make you really confident in what you deploy. And I like that a lot. That makes me believe in the code. So yeah, you're not allowed to write any production code. Okay, you are allowed to write production code. I just wanted to go overboard. So you can't write any more production code than you need. Basically, if you have a test that stipulates that x must be x plus 1 at the third line of code, then your production code should do nothing but increment x, and that's it. If it does, like if x equals null or if x equals 0, 0 or whatever, any other code shouldn't even be in there unless you're going to test it. Don't put it in there. So the idea is if you can't test what you just wrote, don't put it in there. And that also leads to don't write any more code than you need to pass a test. And therefore all tests should test code that you need to pass. That means that you end up writing a lot of tests, sure, but it also means you'll be writing a lot more simple code. You'll be writing a lot more simple components because you don't want to write a lot of tests that test state. You're going to want to go stateless because you're not going to want to deal with state changes. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to do it this way. So let me go into a window, and let's do a new share, and we're going to share our IDE window. So we're going to load up. Actually, let's keep sharing this guy here, and what we'll do is we will look at Spring Initializer. So demo time means, well, I want to be able to take a demo and I want to spin it up. I'm going to do this in Kotlin because I like Kotlin. Kotlin's a great language. It's like the best of all of the languages I've used in the past 10 years without any of the hassles or fuss. It's kind of like Scala, but it's not like Scala. It's kind of like Java. It can be like JavaScript. It's a quasi-functional language. It's got all the Java isms that you need. You could just write Java in Kotlin, but you're not going to want to after a while. You're going to say, holy crap, this is like Java, but it's a whole lot better. It's better than Groovy, even. Almost better than Groovy. Better than Groovy. I don't know if it's better than Groovy. If you think it's better than Groovy, let me know if it's better than Groovy, but I don't know if anybody's ever it came out for once and for all and said it's better than Groovy. But anyway, I digress. Let's go into this. Let's create a server. Let's make this server a Maven project to do it in Kotlin using Spring Boot 227. We're going to call it com-demo Tanzu. We're going to artifact it, calling it server. The name is going to be server. This will be Tanzu Tuesday's testing demo. Tanzu Tuesday test demo. Testing demo is fine. Com-demo Tanzu.server is fine. And we'll use Java 8 because I don't think Kotlin works very well with 11. I could be wrong, but last time I knew it, I used Java 8 for Kotlin, which is fine. You don't need any of the features that you're going to get. I'm not doing anything advanced in Java. I'm doing it in Kotlin. So I have all of the necessary programming features that I need here. I'm going to add a reactive web. So you're going to add a dependency called webflux. Webflux is the thing that lets us expose a JSON MPC or any controllers with the reactive semantics. So we can say rather than issuing rather than using the standard way of programming, we use the reactive way. imperatively. We don't do imperative, we do reactive now. Let's go from Spring Boot Dev Tools, Spring Web to testing data, Mongo. So I want Spring Data Reactive Mongo because I'm just going to spin up a simple Mongo service and that's it. It's not going to do much. But I also want to be able to test my Mongo database in tests. And in order to do that, I can use the Flapdoodle embedded Mongo testing framework. And then one more dependency, in order to get the contract to work, I'm going to need the verifier. And what verifier does is it takes the contract, the description of the service that I wrote, and it turns it into it actually executes it, it tests it against my service, and then it creates an artifact at that test pass. And that artifact can be deployed somewhere in Maven or your FTP or Artifactory, and everybody can test it, and everybody's usually pretty darn happy with it. So let's go into that. Let's so we have we have a reactive Mongo, and we have verifier in here. And do I need anything else? No, we're good. If I do need something else, I'll just come back to it. If you hit the Explore menu on start.spring.io, it's a pretty cool feature that lets you use your Maven, that lets you view the Maven POM file or your Gradle build file or whatever. And for this case, I'm going to steal a, yeah, that's right. I'm going to steal, let's see, what will I steal from here? I believe I need Mongo. Yeah, there it is. So I've created this already, as you can probably tell already. I've created this project, and what I wanted was I wanted the Mongo dependency because I'm missing it in my current version of the project. So let's go in my trusty workspace and Bootiful testing. Come on, here we are. So I haven't added this service yet. This particular directory doesn't exist yet in the repository. It will after this particular demo. Pom.xml. So let's do idea pom. Let's start an idea window. Apparently my idea crashed earlier. I wonder why. It was open a minute ago, but then it I think my video, I was listening to my computer go turn into a helicopter. And it threatened to take off from my apartment, from my house here, lest I turn some services off. And that's what I did. I must have killed idea in a hurry because my machine was literally on fire. But there used to be a Linux kernel, kernel.h, printers.h, a long time ago, where one of the messages in kernel.h was something like line print error. Printer is on fire. It was one of those. Well, I'm waiting for my IntelliJ to start up. Yeah, okay, so LP0 on fire is known as printer on fire. It's an outdated message that some Unix-like computing operating systems did for specific printer errors. And usually it's because like a paper jam got so bad that every single stack, every single ream of paper was just clogged, and it might as well be on fire, right? At that point, because like who likes dot matrix printers? Who's ever had a dot matrix printer?
Everyone likes
right?
dot matrix printers.
What? I mean, they're great sound effects. I used to be able to like go down the street and hear my old old Panasonic dot matrix. But yeah, like I don't know what happened to that thing. I want to bring it back.
Ripping the side tabs was also very satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was, oh man, yeah, 9-pin. Oh man, yeah. Ripping off the sides of the printouts was the best. I used to print source code on that thing. And I use it in graphic render mode. So instead of doing like normal text, it would have to render the lines and it would take forever to print, but it looked beautiful, you know? Just totally.
How's your idea going? Have we got it up, or do we need to kill more dot matrix storage?
Oh yeah, no, I need another second. This I forget what Zoom that my I'm using a conference software and my computer doesn't know how to encode video in a way that doesn't take it out of the competition of CPU. And so basically, like I said before, my computer was on fire. My computer's on fire again. And kill -9 will work, but I just won't be able to give that demo. This is the reason why I started switching to Emacs in a Raspberry Pi about a year ago. And I think I might do that again. I might just go back to that Emacs and Raspberry Pi by an Elgato and I'll be done, right? Like an Elgato doesn't take up CPU time to encode. It just kind of does it on its own. Well, right now, I guess I'm using some hardcore crazy CPU time because this guy is breathing. All right, so let's just do a simple test. The first test I'm going to do is going to be a Mongo test. It's going to test out that I can save a piece of data inside of MongoDB.
Hey, we still can't
this is
see
going
your IDE.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, there we go. So let me change that new share. Let's change it to my IDE window. There we go. Can you see it now?
Nope. If you look at in your Zoom window, you can actually see the camera. Oh, we just had it. There it is.
Oh, there it is. Okay, good.
All right.
Yay.
Yeah, if you look at
All
the
right.
people in your Zoom chat, one of the cameras is actually what you're playing. So if you ever want to double check, you can see that.
How's the video quality there?
Looks. You could probably zoom in your text a little bit.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll enter presentation mode, and then I'll
Perfect.
yeah, and it looks like I got to increase that font because the compression. I guess I don't want to compress the crap out of the font here, right? So let's make that like a 16 font. Once the fonts get compressed, then it's like you might as well just be talking, buddy.
I would still go a little bigger.
Is that better? Oh, a little bigger. Okay, so maybe 20. This is a 4K monitor I'm doing this on, so
Whoa,
I'm not even
whoa,
sure.
Name dropper. Whoa, easy.
Well, you don't 8K over there? Gee.
I guess they don't have that down in Playa del Rey.
Right? Right. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do for this test is we're going to say, hey, data Mongo test, right? And what we're going to do, oh gosh, come on, just stop indexing, will you? All right, whatever. We'll do that later. We'll let the IDE finish what it's doing. We're going to tell it data Mongo test because what data Mongo test does is it only loads up MongoDB components, so it'll only load up the repositories and any of the documents that I happen to stash in my repository. Now, oh, there we go, finally. Now, what it doesn't do is it doesn't load up Webflux, and it doesn't load up anything else that's in the Spring Boot auto configuration. So if you know, Spring Boot will auto configure things for you. It'll go looking in the class path, and it'll go finding these manifests that tell it, depending on the auto configuration. For instance, if it's Cassandra, then load up the Cassandra auto configuration, right? And it'll go looking for spring.data.cassandra.hostname, .ports, yada yada yada. And we don't want that. We don't want any of that action happening. We only want it to do the auto scanning for Mongo, and that's what data Mongo test does. And that's also why it makes our tests go much faster.
Mario, can you go one bigger?
Yeah. How about preferences? How about a couple more bigger? So 24. Let's go to. This is a 4K monitor. Like, believe me, this thing is it's ginormous.
Yeah, I barely see any font change when you do that. Like, I mean, I have a big monitor, but I don't feel like putting this as like my entire screen.
Yeah. Okay, we can go to 28. Oh, anti-aliasing is at subpixel, yes?
Yeah. I don't think it's changing it on the actual editor.
I don't think so either.
It's only changing
you're right,
menu.
It's not. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Thanks for nothing.
I was wondering why nothing was
changing. I'm like, why is the menu getting bigger, but my text isn't getting bigger? And am I not noticing the text getting any bigger? It could be. Okay, so I'll have a font of 26. How about 28? Is that going to do it? Will that do anything?
Doesn't seem to be making a difference.
It doesn't seem to be doing anything.
Can you just
44.
do like a control?
That's a huge font. Can I? 26. How do I do that? File encoding path. Let's see. IDE font or editor font.
Oh, Spencer is saying that doing that doesn't actually change it when you're in presentation mode.
Oh, okay. So there we go. Probably it's because I never used presentation mode.
Spencer for the win again. Spencer for hire.
Spencer for the win.
June 2nd, everyone. Spencer gift.
Okay, this is all huge on my monitor now. This is ginormous on my monitor. I hope you guys can see it now.
Is it a 4K monitor? Just checking.
It looks
it's a 4K,
same size as it did before.
Really?
Yeah, it hasn't made any difference.
Oh, it got bigger on mine.
Did you keep it at 26?
Maybe it'll take a second. I put it up to 26. Yeah, I took it down from 44 to 26. And something.
You can't do 26. Control plus, Control minus in the text editor itself to zoom in and out.
Let's see. Oh yeah, I know how to do this. There's I forget. I use bigger fonts. I'll change the yeah, give me a second. Scheme. Do I have bigger fonts on here? I don't have bigger fonts. I don't have the bigger font scheme on here.
I would just turn your font to size 30.
Yeah. Let's try that. So it's a full featured IDE, right? I mean, it is. I thought. Hit apply. Okay.
I give up.
Let's change the Windows size so that it's like not 20% of 8K or 25% of 8K at least. All right. All right, so I'm going to move on.
How does that help? Because then I just see your, I mean, it now you can see your terminal and everything at the same time if that was your intent.
Yeah, my intent was to show only the IDE of not desktop, but of.
You're sharing your desktop.
Yeah. Okay, so that should change it just to the IDE.
I think that looks better.
Does that look better?
Yeah.
Does it? Yes. Okay, good. All right. Whew. All right. So nice. Good one. Good for the win, guys. And you out there, Spencer, I can hear you. So let's see. What did I say? Data Mongo test. Let's look at it real quickly. What does Data Mongo test do?
You know what? We should just probably start from the very, very beginning. Let's just go back to the top.
Yeah, let's just go to the beginning. Okay. Guys, we're going back to the beginning. Bye. No, we're not going to the beginning yet. Okay, so this is what happens when you use Data Mongo test. It's an annotation that's used for MongoDB tests that focuses only on MongoDB. All right, so it's going to disable full, just like what I explained earlier, right? So it disables full auto configuration, and it only lets Mongo components load, and it makes our tests go faster. So we're going to use extend-with because we're using JUnit 5, and we're going to say Spring extension : class. There we are. And since we're using Kotlin, we use : class to denote the class of the type of it, the type of thing that we're going to give it. So we use Data Mongo tests. Now we want to actually test this, and in order to test it, we need to have some sort of a way of getting data in and out of a repository. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say autowired. Hi, yes, okay. Private late init var repo : reactive Mongo repository. And I'm going to have an ID type. And the ID type here, it could be any ID type I want. I'm going to use an ID type of UUID because I like UUIDs. I'm going to have a actual real type of what's a good type? Like order. How about order? Okay. You know, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, yeah, that sounds a little contrived, Mario. Like, why would you use the word order? Reactive Mongo repository. Okay, so you don't know it exists today, don't you? You know why? Because I forgot to put that in there. That's why. So let's add that dependency. Dependencies. We'll do group ID, and we'll say org spring framework.boot. And then we'll say artifact ID is going to be reactive. It's going to be called Spring Boot Starter Reactive MongoDB. Spring Boot Starter. What is the name of that dependency again? Let's go back to that Chrome window and copy and paste that. Did I kill that Chrome window already, or is it just not gonna? Well, oh, it's down here. Okay. So let's explore that. What was the name of the artifact? That's all we want. We just want to know. It's called Spring Boot Starter Data MongoDB Reactive. Oh, wow. Yeah, I wasn't going to remember that for the life of me, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to add that, and then it's going to allow us to use the reactive Mongo repository again. So give it a second. one day it'll work. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, because the POM file should just automatically take, and it is taking a while because my computer is anemic. It's got CPU problems, you guys. My uptime is at 14.26. That means I have 14 cores in full use, which means that, like, if I were a CPU, and I only have 4 cores on this computer, if I were a CPU, I would be overtaxed by several times. And so that's why my computer sounds like a jet engine right now. So I have an error. And this is actually a legitimate error, and I shouldn't go any further than this, right? Because, well, you know, who keeps coding after an error? Reactive Mongo repository. Oh, man, that thing is just... Okay. All right, so we'll just create a class called order here. Oddly enough, stuff like this doesn't... Oh, let's just create the class called order, extract a separate file. We're going to go to production, and yeah, we'll just add it to Git. It's fine. I don't need a whole class for here. So in Kotlin, you probably have seen this before. We have data class. They're kind of like the records coming up in the, like, what, Java 17, 18, 19? Data class, this is called order. It will have an ID, a val ID, :UUID, and then it's going to have a item, val item string, and then the actual quantity, and val qty integer. So that's it. So that's all it is. That's all an order is. An order is literally 3 things: an ID, an item, and a quantity. And that's all that we need to have. But we don't want just that. We want a repository around order, because we want to be able to tell Mongo database, hey, I have a repository. I want you to get this order in and out. So what we'll do is we'll create another class, an interface, and we'll call it order repository. And we'll call it order repository MongoDB, because we might have another DB. I don't know. We could have a completely separate database later on that does the same thing, but just, you know, with another backend. Reactive Mongo repository. Okay, somebody's naughty here. What in the world? Why haven't I seen my reactive MongoDB stuff pop up yet? There's a specific reason for this. There's a very good reason, and I'm going to solve it right now. I know my computer isn't that slow, but I do know that I am capable of doing it all here. And cat pom.xml. Let's check out my pom file, make sure that pom looks good. That's exactly what I thought. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to quit IDE at this point, because
Sweet Killer's saying maybe it's a Maven issue.
Yeah, I just have to quit IDE at that point. That thing was it was acting all weird at first, so I want to make sure that I can get it back to a steady state where I don't have to watch it every 10 seconds and ask it, like, oh, hey, did you get that index? So what we want to do is we want to basically test our Mongo databases, but we want to test it so that we can code it too. And if I can't code it, then what's the point of me showing you a test if I can't, like, actually make it work? So let's try our best here to do that. So let's go back in here and share that window. It should be back. You guys could see it again. Reactive Mongo. Oh, wow, it's still indexing. Okay, give it a second. It'll take a second. And, like, honestly, I could be doing it wrong, because, you know, I don't spend all day in the same project. And so clearly I might have forgotten one thing. I just want to make sure I haven't, and I doubt I have, and I haven't, but it's just my IDE acting weird. Let me just find out if I did something else weird, though, because it's always possible. You should always trust yourself, but at the same time, you should always, you know, take yourself with great suspicion. That's probably not a good idea, because a lot of people will think, well, no, I don't want to despiser. I don't want to take account for my suspicions, my own suspicions. Yeah, it's called Mongo Reactive Mongo repository. Now, I thought I was going crazy for a second because, well, for some reason, Reactive Mongo repository, now it's there. Woohoo! Finally, guys, it's back. Order and UUID. Okay, so it's type it in key. All right. Oh, God, that feels way better. What are you doing there? Okay. All righty. So we have these two things here. We're going to need it. So this order repository MongoDB will be found on the class path through data Mongo test. Like I said before, anything that has to do with MongoDB will be found. This order here isn't going to be class scanned because it's not included in any configuration other than the Reactive Mongo repository. So we don't need to worry about it. We just need to worry about the thing that talks to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an instance of it. We're going to let it get auto-wired through a normal auto-wiring way in which Spring knows how to find a type that you're looking for of that object and go, okay, well, here are your generic types. I'm going to fill them in because you already have this when you have an order UUID Reactive Mongo repository. I know you call it order repository MongoDB, but I know what it really is. So it's going to find the right thing, put it in there, and I'll be able to use it. I don't have to directly address the order repository here. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to write a test, and I want to say fun, and if you use backticks in Kotlin, you can type in whatever you want. So I want to save and find a order, and it should save and find an order. So say should save and find an order. And don't worry if I spell A-N and A, because nobody really cares. Val order is equal to order, and we're going to say UUID.random UUID, right? And then we're going to say this is a valve because we like Half-Life 3, and we want 3 of them. So we want 3 valves, and that's a huge hint to anybody watching this stream right now on Twitch. Hey, we want that valve. We want that Half-Life. You know. All right. So what's the next thing I want to do? I want to create now. I want to show you like what it looks like to create the stream itself. What we're going to do is we're going to put this order into a database, and then we're going to take it out of the database using streams. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like. Now, remember, streams are not imperatively executed. They're not executed. So if I did something like val save stream, it's equal to repo.save order, right? So this is actually going to return a stream, right? This is a stream operation. It's going to return a mono that basically says, yeah, we're good, or no, like there's an error, right? And so as long as this doesn't error out, we assume it's good. At least that's what I want to tell myself. It's entirely possible, but the downstream didn't do anything, and that it just said, yeah, it works. But we're pretty sure Mongo repositories work. Val read stream. So we're going to create a stream for reading, and we're going to say repo.findAll. So I'm going to say, hey, find all, give me a flux. This is going to return a flux of orders. Ooh, all by itself. It really did. Wow. Okay. Sorry, buddy. You all right, man? Yeah, dude. All right, my dog is like, oh man, your stuff is falling down. All right, so read stream is just going to return it's going to do a stream operation of find all, returning a flux. Now I can do the following thing. I can say compose. So I can take 2 streams and I can say, hey, execute this and then execute that, right? So what I'll do is I'll say flux dot from, and I'll say save stream. So flux dot from save stream will evaluate that flux upon subscription. Then many will say, hey, once you've executed that, then dump the answer and then execute this next thing here. So then I'm going to say, okay, we'll execute read stream. As long as save stream executed correctly and save stream did its thing, we don't care about the answer as long as it didn't accept. Then do something that will return me a flux. So returning this flux here, we'll just say, okay, well, I'm going to read out of Mongo and return whatever comes out of it. And that's going to be a flux of things. Now, I think I should make it mono dot from, because this is actually a mono. So what we want to do is call them publishers as well. So save publisher, and then read publisher. Hi. All right, so now we have two publishers and we compose them, and then we need to test it. So how do we test it? What's happening here is nothing is actually happening here. All we're doing is composing the workflow for the streams. Nothing has happened. If I were to run this program right now, nothing would happen because nothing happens until a stream gets subscribed to, in which it tells the source to begin doing its operations. So we can do that in test by using something called a step verifier. And what step verifier is going to do is create a test harness for our streams. So this test harness allows us to say, okay, well, I want you to test the stream, and I want you to put it through its paces. So we're going to put the composed stream through its paces. And what we want to do is we want to say, well, make sure that we subscribe to it, right? And then make sure that the item that comes out of the stream, that we only expect one item, right? So we're going to expect that assert next, and we're going to say, hi, there you are. Okay, so we're going to use that. We're going to assert next, and as long as this assert next closure does not accept it, as long as it doesn't throw an error, then we're good. If it throws an error, then we have a failed test. So let's see. Assertions, we're going to use assert J to write our assertions. Assert that it, so we assert it is not null, and that has has field or property with value. So we want the property item to have the value of valve, because we love valve and stuff like that. Maybe no, I don't want to upgrade. Oh, don't you know, like if my CPU is above, if my uptime's above 8, then please don't do anything. Okay, so has field or property with value is item value, so that's good. We want to make sure that it's not null and that it has this little bit of state in it. That's pretty much all we want to do here. We just want to make sure that it has a little bit of state and that like nothing's totally gone wrong. So after we do assert next, we can do verify. Expect complete first. So what this does is this basically says that once you've asserted that one thing and you've taken it out of the stream, that there is nothing else and that stream is closed. If that stream isn't closed, then it won't be complete, and the expect complete statement will fail. But in this case, I know it's going to be closed, so I know that won't fail. And then verify says, okay, well, at this point, we know the state, we know what you were looking for in your stream during runtime, and therefore we're going to compile that into an actual test case or into an actual like program, and we are going to execute that and put your assertions in there, and as long as everything is fine, you're not going to hear from us, right? And that's good until something goes wrong, but as you know, everything here should be fine. Now, I don't need to do it this way. This is the more complicated way, where you actually ask if it's complete first, and then you ask to verify it. We don't need to do that. We can just say verify complete. This is the same thing as what I did earlier, only it's in one line, and I don't have to like worry about that other stuff. Splitting it up is good if you want to do something in between the stages of completion. And if you want to do something like ensure that it doesn't hold up your thread too long, right? So like verify complete, I don't believe takes any arguments, so it takes no arguments. But verify itself, expect complete first of all, and then verify. So if this thing doesn't complete, duration of seconds. If this thing doesn't take, if this thing takes more than 1 second to complete, then it's going to throw an error. And that's the type of behavior that I want. So some of these things, sometimes you might test actual components. You might be testing like a file system, and you might have a very long link to a file system that you shouldn't have used because it's a test. And well, you're going to find out really quickly that it takes longer than a second to actually reach that file, and you're going to have to change that test. So sometimes it's a good idea to do the duration, especially when you have many asynchronous components and you're always not sure which component will be run. Now, my system menu looks weird, but don't worry about that. The reason why is because I've been mucking around with the font sizes, and that can never be a good thing when you're doing a live demo. So we're going to run that test, and that's our Mongo test. Then we're going to go to the next test, which is the website of the test. So what we want to do next is we want to take our repository and we want to front it with a website with a JSON file. We want to front it with a REST service, and this is really easy too. I think what you'll find in this one is that you have a lot of components to help you along each part of the stack. For instance, if you're writing Mongo database drivers, then you're going to use Mongo data test. If you're doing Cassandra, you're going to use Cassandra test. If you're doing Redis, you're going to do Redis test. And these test slices all let you separate chunks of your application stack and test them in isolation. The next one that I'm going to do here is called web flux test. And what flux test is, it's a test slice that only gives us the web tier. And that test passed, so we can move on. So let's go ahead and imagine that we have the need to export this guy as a test. So let's call it service REST tests. There we are, service REST tests. And yeah, add it to Git, I don't mind. So service REST test is going to be a class, and we're going to do that. We're going to say here, and we're going to say web flux test. And yeah, there you are. And extend. I don't think I need to do extend with. I think extend with already happens in here. Let me make sure. Extend with. Yeah, it does. It already happens in here, so I don't need to do extend with. Great. All right. So the only thing I need to do is remind you guys that because web flux test doesn't give us our data components, that we have to mock our data components not automatically, but manually. Which isn't so bad, because honestly, you don't want things to get autowired in a test anyway. You really want them to usually I want to piece things together in my own so I know exactly what I'm testing. But web flux test allows me to get there really fast. And I'll show you in a minute what that means. So the first thing I'm going to do is mock out my repository. So I'm going to say mock bean. And then I'm going to say private late init var repo reactive Mongo repo. And that's going to be order and UUID, right? Okay. There you are. Minogue? Kylie Minogue? No, there is no Kylie Minogue repository. I'm sorry. I think Kylie Minogue might be alive. Might not be alive, but that doesn't matter. If somebody out there tells me if Kylie Minogue's still alive, her new name is Kylie Mongo. So what we're gonna also need to do is set up the behavior of that repository. So I guess we'll do is we'll say before all. Before all. There you go. So before all, and then fun setup. And this is really simple. This is probably doing something that you guys all like doing, which is BDD Makito, which is behavior-driven Makito dot given. Repo dot let's see, find all will return a flux dot just. So we're going to return just a flux. I mean, not just a flux, but we're going to return a flux that's statically initiated with the following order. Order UID dot from string my string my ID. I'm going to create something called my ID in there later. Don't worry for now. We're going to call it valve, and we're going to say the number is 3 because we love Half-Life 3 from Valve. If they ever make it, we'll get there one day. Don't worry. It's not my fault that they didn't do that yet. Val my ID is equal to. I need some sort of a UUID string, you guys. So I'm going to go out here and I'm going to find a UUID. Because why not? Why wouldn't I want to find? There we go. That's a good UUID right there. I just needed a random UUID value, so I just took that right there because I want to be able to like also demonstrate that I've seen this ID and that this ID is going to be the same ID as the one that I gave it. That's really important to me. So we tell BDD Makito to go ahead and just return a find all with that one ID. And now let's go ahead and test it. But we're going to test it across the web, and we're going to use some special components in order to do that. So one should get /all, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a web request. We're going to say web test client. Oh, this is a new component. Now remember step verifier that I showed you earlier? Step verifier is the ultimate component for doing reactive test harnessing, right? If you want to harness a reactive stream, you want to use step verifier. However, if you have HTTP semantics to test, if you want to be able to test anything that goes across the wire and talks to an HTTP 1.1, 1.2, whatever server, you're going to need WebFlux test. And that's going to basically do the things that you want to do with the reactive semantics, with reactive API. You're not going to have to use step verifier. You're just going to use this guy here. He'll do all the work of marshalling, demarshalling, getting the objects out, and then verifying them for you. Use the API that we give you, that's given, this Fluent API, and everything will be fine. So it's a client for testing web servers that uses a web client internally. The web client is a reactive REST template, for instance. It's a reactive version of it. Let's just call it that. It uses the web client internally to perform requests while also providing a Fluent API to verify responses. This client can connect to any server over HTTP or to a WebFlux application via mock request and response objects. So in other words, it doesn't matter what you're using. This is still an HTTP client. You're going to be able to do that. You're going to be able to connect directly to your own web application using the mocks, because the way Spring abstracts HTTP conversations is it gives you something called a web server exchange, and it gives you a request and a response side, and you can basically create a request object, feed it to an exchange, and it'll do all of the HTTP-ness, all the HTTP things internally without going through the wires. So that's really important because it makes it so that you don't have to start the server, which lightens your server time startup, which also helps us to stay focused on just HTTP tests and just our server code. We don't want to test anything else but our server code, right? And that's what it helps us to do. So Web Test Client is a reactive approach to testing our internal website, web clients. Now, Web Test Client can be bound against a number of things. If you have a Spring HTTP, if you have a Spring context, application context, you could bind it to the application context itself. You could bind it directly to a router function, which is actually a good thing because I like doing it that way since it allows me to be very precise about which things I'm going to test. You can also bind it to controller. So if you have any controller annotated components, just throw that in there and you're good. Bind it to a server. So you just tell it which server, connect to that server. It'll connect to a remote server and do the same thing for you. Now, Web Test Client itself gives you a copy of the web. I'm sorry. Let me go back there. Web Test Client. Yeah, I just did that, didn't I? So WebFlux Test actually gives you an instance of Web Test Client that's bound against your application context. Only thing is that you have to tell it explicitly which imports to use in order to engage the website, the web parts. You'll see in a minute. Let's just do this. Let's do WebFlux Test Client. Let's do auto wired private late init var test client. So what we're going to do here is we're going to let Spring auto wire our test client for us. So we're not going to do the thing that I normally do, which is bind to an existing piece of infrastructure. We're going to just use the one that they give us, and I'll show you what it means. All right, so we're going to say test client.get.uri, and then URI is going to be /all. We've probably seen this before. We want to do accept charset, and we want to say media type dot JS UTF-8. There we go. Or application JSON. Come on, you got this. Did I spell that right? There we go. Pretty sure I did that wrong. Pretty sure I did all that part wrong right there. Always. Is it get URI and then accept media type? Oh, there we are. Good Lord. I was like, wait. Okay, so let's get rid of that other one there. We have that comp shaded Google Common Net media type. How did that get there? I don't know. All right, and then I guess what we want to do also is we want to say We guess we could do exchange. And this just means take that request that you see those 3 lines above there. It's going to expect JSON. It's going to do a get on /all. And we wanted to talk to the server here. And then expect status is OK. Expect header, content type, media type. Give me the Spring version. Dot application JSON. Ooh. Oh, okay, it's okay. Okay, so content type is okay. And now we can do expect body. And at this part, what we're going to do is we're going to, I'm sorry, there's a commotion. Thank you. All right, I had to turn that down really quickly because that could get really buggy. All right, so expect body, and then now we're going to do some simple JSON path. So what we're going to do is use the JSON path expression from JWay to introspect our JSON packet, our JSON payload, and tell that it has certain characteristics. So I'm going to say $dot the 0th path for the given item equal to valve, because we want valve to be in there. And we want the second one JSON path. We want the first .0th .id is equal to UID of from string. Hi. Actually, I don't think it needs to do that because this is JSON. This is not going to be a real type. It's going to be equal to my ID. There we are. All righty, and that's it. That's all we need to do. So what this basically does is, with this, given this expression here, it will block. So I don't have to do the subscription or anything. This will block, and this will execute the /all get, and it will return. It'll do its normal thing. So let's run this right now because apparently this test looks good, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this test. Do you guys think there's anything wrong with this test? I don't think there's anything wrong with this test. Because this test is perfect, I'm going to go ahead and say that this test will work since it's perfect and all. There's nothing wrong with it, right? So I guess we're done. Almost. I guess we're practically done here. We could go home, right? No, only forgot one very important thing: to implement the service. Oh yeah, and also, if you're going to do before all, you're going to have to use that. It's before each. There you go. Yeah, you're going to have to use that annotation, the static annotation, because of Kotlin. Ooh. This also gives me an idea. Gives me a couple of ideas, but one idea is better than none, right? Good. An equal, oh, okay, man. Well, I didn't ask for Groovy to load anyway, so if you hear that noise, just to know that my computer is literally calling for help. All right, so not found. I wonder why. I wonder if we forgot the most important thing, which is to actually implement the thing. Yeah, it probably is. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to show you really quickly. I'm pretty sure you've seen this before too. So we're going to call it order repo. We're going to call it order controller. REST controller. I don't even want to call it that. Order REST. I have no idea what to call it right now. All right, so let's go. Do you want to add the following to get? Yes, of course. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a component. I'm talking as fast as I can because my dog is trying to leave. Hey man, I know. I'm sorry. You want some meat? Here, have some meat. Ready? Well, give me your paw. No, shoulder. Good boy. Yeah.
Who's a good boy?
Good.
Oh yes, he is. Who's a good boy?
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good, Ferris. See, oh, he's so cute. He's just looking at my hand like I've got all the food in the world. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a configuration component. And this configuration component, I have dog slobber all over me right now. Configuration, and this will be seen. This will not be seen on the class path because remember the WebFlux test ignores everything except for WebFlux components, and we don't have any WebFlux stereotypes in here yet or at all. So we're going to have to either wire this in manually, or I'll show you another way of getting this particular configuration into our class path at test time. So we're going to say class order rest, which is really the worst name I've ever given anything. But I see that you guys are very forgiving about this stuff. So we're going to create a bean. And this bean will be called a router bean. It's going to become a order router, and it's going to be order router, and it's going to return a type of router function of there you go, service response. Ooh, response. Is it response? It's yeah, it's server response. Oh, there it is. Okay, well, I don't know why I wasn't there earlier. Okay. Sometimes you just kind of like wonder about yourself. You're just like, am I doing everything wrong? Like, why isn't IDE give me more? That's why I don't like IDEs too much, because what happens is you end up getting used to seeing things like that happen. And if you're the guy who uses Emacs, he sees nothing but a one character buffer, then everything is fine. Back in the old days of programming, when I had to bring out the book instead of using the IDE. Alrighty. Yeah, that C book was amazing. That Carrington and Rich. Oh, dude, C and R books were amazing. Alrighty. So router. So this is a Kotlin DSL. I'm pretty sure that Starbucks man explained Kotlin DSLs earlier. Kotlin DSLs are amazing. They allow us to do things that are simple functions. This is really just a very simple function, and it's syntactic sugar. Okay, it's just syntactic sugar for what we would normally do in Java. So don't think that you're getting anything extra in here. You're getting nothing extra in here. You're just getting syntactic sugar, because that's all this is. This is just syntactic sugar. But it's really cool syntactic sugar because it loads your DSL in here automatically. So I can do something like get / all, right? I mean, seriously, like that's so awesome. Yeah. Don't tell me that I don't like this DSL, but if you don't like this DSL, then that means you just don't understand it enough. Or if you do understand it and you still don't like it, let me know, because I really want to know what's wrong with this DSL. I'm pretty sure that there's a guy doing Ruby right now going, no, this is not right. This is voodoo. This is witchcraft. This is not supposed to happen. Or maybe there's a Go guy, or one of you Rust people are out there. I love you Rust people. I want to hear what you feel about this DSL, syntactic sugar. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, server response, return OK. Give me a 200 in that server response. Remember, it's a mono, so it's just a single response. It's okay. It's going to have a body of something, but what is the body going to be of? And in order to know that, we have to wire in something. So we call it repository, and we say reactive Mongo repository, and that's going to be a VUID and of order, right? Or is it, oh God, is it T and O, T and I? Okay, order VUID, there we go. Okay, so now we have a val. What's the problem? Oh, yeah, there's nobody's got one of those yet. So we're repo.find all. Find all colon order colon class.java. Okay. Alrighty. All right, so that works there. So this is a really simple router, and all it does, remember, this is a reactive router, and this is also a Kotlin router. This is a Kotlin DSL router. This gives you all of the Java types that you would get in the Java language. Only thing is that I'm using the Kotlin DSL, which is a syntactic sugar over the router functions. That allows me to define them in such a natural way, or in such a Sinatra way that I like. So I'm saying router get all, respond with find all, and it's an order. So the JSON should know what's actually going to come out of here. Jackson knows how to deserialize classes like this. All right, so that's all I have there, and that's that. Now, will this work? Not yet. Webflux test won't work until I do this. Import order rest class.java. Now I'm importing that guy as a configuration. Import. Oh, we don't need the dot. All right, there we go. All right. Now, if you notice, I've auto-wired a web test client, and I have mocked out the reactive Mongo repository. Now in production, this particular order rest component won't work because nobody's got one of these yet. Oh no, we do have one of those now. In test, it shouldn't work because, well, we made it mock, but because we did for each, we give it behavior. Now that the repository has something to do, we can call our test client and it'll do the right thing using the mock in the background. So let's go ahead and test that and ensure that we're getting our application set up correctly. And then I'll show you how to test it with the binding only, and you don't have to do the auto wiring part. In fact, you don't, unless you really want web test client to know about your componentry, you don't need to do webflex test. You can just say web test client.bind to this. If you really don't care about Spring doing anything, that is, if you don't want Spring to auto wire any componentry, or if you don't want Spring to have any say so over your componentry, then don't include that annotation. But if you do need Spring, but you don't need the webflex test, just use Spring Boot test, right? So in this case, I'm going to get rid of both. I'm just going to get rid of the whole idea that I have a, you know what? No, I won't. I'm not going to make it that hard. That passed, and I don't want to spend up all your time with silly tests. But let's do one more thing. Let's get rid of that because I still want to show you what that test client should look like. So we'll say web test client dot bind to router function, and I'm going to say order rest, and I'm going to give it my repo, and I'm going to say, and here's the router function itself, order router, and that's it. And order router build. There we are. And then we built it. So basically we said, hey, give me an instance of web test client, but only bind it to this one router or function, and then build the instance. And now it only knows how to talk mock to a single component within my entire web application. I could have hundreds of services in here, but this thing's only going to find one, and it won't need to wire up anything else. And I like that. I like that a lot. Alrighty, so if I can test any component in isolation, I will, and that's what I'm doing here. So let's go ahead and go to the next part. Now we've tested data, we've tested web. The next thing I wanted to test was the idea behind a contract, right? Remember we talked about Spring Cloud contracts, and we had the idea that there's somebody out there who's going to want to use our code, and there's somebody out there who's going to want to take that code and do something with it. They're going to want to be pretty. You want to make people pretty comfortable with your code, right? So let's go for that. Let's make them as comfortable as possible with our code. So the first thing we're going to need to do in order to enable Spring Cloud Contract, we have to tell Maven. We have to tell Maven, hey, I've got this plugin that takes some of my code and then creates a jar file out of it. And that plugin is called the Spring Cloud Contract Maven plugin. And it's this guy here. And what I did was I will take a base class that I have earlier, and I will rename it, and I will say com demo Tanzu service .base class, and then I'll tell it to use JUnit 5. And the explicit test mode means, okay, you're not going to test using those mocks anymore. You're going to go ahead and create an actual HTTP service. You're going to stand it up, and then you're going to test it. Because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that this is wire safe as well. I can also do mocks, but I don't usually do mocks with the cloud contract testing. Now, if I want to, I can go to Spring Cloud Contract version, and I can just use a version of Spring Cloud Contract that I'm familiar with, or you're familiar with. If you have a version that you like, let me know, and I'll include it. For now, I'm going to use 2.10.release, and then I will say, oh, what's going on there? I don't know. That just looks like a dependency that's, yeah, it'll take a minute for that stuff all to sort out. It takes forever usually. All right, so we configured Spring Cloud Contract to execute when we build our project, right? The next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to tell Spring Cloud Contract what our actual thing looks like. What does it look like? What does our service look like, right? So let's describe it. Let's call it should fetch should find all.yaml. We're going to create a YAML file, and the YAML file is going to be the thing that actually describes it. It does the job of describing our project. It does a job of describing, and I don't want that to be called should. Yeah, it doesn't matter what it's called. So what we'll do is we shall say descript. I don't know how to spell. Orders, I guess this is an order thing. And then what name is tests all order fetch. And then request all method get response status header content type and body from file. This is the description. It basically describes the request side, just like I did in my test scenario. And then it's going to respond with the, it's going to then describe the response side. What does it look like? Is it status 200 or 400? Is it content type JSON UTF-8? Sure. But what does the body look like? I have no idea what the body looks like in here. So what we're going to need to do at this point is we're also going to need, and he left. Hey, dude, you just can't leave like that. I'll come back. My dog left me.
Should have had more treats for him. It's your own fault.
My dog left me. This is like a country music song. My dog left me. It's a sad day when your dog leaves you, you know. So we're gonna need the, yeah, you can bring more. Well, we have enough meat. I mean, like it's sitting right there, but he's so spoiled. He knows he's gonna get another treat us when he's go downstairs. We're gonna give it an ID here. So that's our UUID that we like to use. Then we're going to have an item. Item, and that item name is going to be valve, and then we need a quantity, and that quantity is going to be 3. Now, remember the idea here was we're trying to create a spell. We want Half-Life 3 to be released anytime soon. So this entire hexadecimal string actually spells out the first couple of lines of code of Half-Life 3. Just kidding. No, it doesn't. Of course, if it did, then I would never tell you guys because I'd be sitting at home playing Half-Life 3 all by myself. All right. So the next thing that's going to happen is base class. Now, remember that thing you saw in the POM file? And you're like, why the hell does Mario have a POM file? Or why in the heck does Mario have a pointer to a class? Well, why does he have this? What is this guy here, right? Well, this guy here, the job of this particular base class is to set up the world, the runtime, the steady state of the service that's going to be tested. So I need to make sure that base class reflects a steady state of my order service, and that when something goes to test it or call it, that it returns the correct item. So whatever I described in this YAML file here with this JSON, with this generic.json, whatever comes out of here has to be described in my base class as well. So at this point, all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a no, it's Spring Boot test, right? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to spin up a port. We're going to need to create a Spring Boot test that has maybe a web environment, a Spring Boot test.web environment random port. Okay, so we want this guy to stand up a random port web server, okay? Because this isn't Kotlin, we can just say .class now, because, hi. So we're coding in Java right now because I have an error. I have an older version of Gradle, or an actual older version of Maven that I seem to have broken, and it did some bad things. But I think you guys know what's going on here. So I'm going to import the router file that I had earlier. So we're going to call that what was that import? Import was order router, order rest class. So it's going to be this guy, and then I can say local server port. Now remember, local server port is basically saying, hey, start up a TCP server on port 0. And what happens when you start up any socket? I'm sorry, if you do a socket and you open up a socket on port 0, it won't actually be port 0. It'll be like the random port that's available, and it'll return with the socket that's actually listening there. Probably most people want to know which port's actually open, but it's really hard to actually know what port is actually open for longer than a clock cycle, because the next clock cycle, that port might be closed or it might be used. So you have to open it and then just sit there and wait for, you know, somebody to want to use it. So the next thing we want to do is mock our, we're going to mock our repository again. That's right. What did we do last time? So this means that we should be able to take some of that code. We should be able to like take this code here. We should just take it. There we go. I'm going to take it and we're going to say private. Yeah, I guess we can do private reactive Mongo repository. Reactive Mongo repository order ID. Order. There we go. Gotcha. Repo. I'm gonna call it repo, not repository. How dare you? Okay, so before each, we just stole it, and what we're going to do is just say public void setup here, and we're going to leave everything else alone because everything else just works. UID from string. Oh, we need that guy. We need this guy here. That's our famous string. We need this. We need that guy there. My ID. Hi. Yes, you are there. Oh, Val. Oh my God. String. Private string. It's like you're speaking Spanish all of a sudden. Yeah, it's new order. When find will return. Oh, why are you giving me shit today? Okay, don't worry about that. Just don't worry about that. Just do this. Just do when repo.find all. Then come on, you got this. Then return, and we'll say flux.just. Then new order. UID.from string my ID, comma valve, comma 3. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. What's wrong with this? Oh, is that why? Oh gosh. Oh, when was the last time I've done that stuff? Oh, somebody hates me today. Look at that. Then return flux.just. New order. Really? You can't compile that? Did I do something so wrong that you what? Cannot resolve method then return. Oh. Wait, yes. Repo.find all when then return. Yes, that's correct. This is exactly what I normally always do. This is what I've always have done. And now it's just telling me like, nah, dude, like that's not gonna fly today. That's just not going to fly. Give me a flux of just that one thing. And that's all I wanted. That's all I've ever wanted. All right. Alrighty. So we're going to get past that in a second, but don't worry about that. I clearly am doing something either wrong or my IDE doesn't know yet. I'm going to assume my IDE doesn't know yet. So after I set up the behavior for my application, this is all that I need to do is just set up the application behavior. In this case, I don't really need to do anything besides auto-wire my repository that's mocked. So since my mock repository is up here, and I've exposed my web, right? I've exposed my RESTful endpoint. Everything is already set except for rest assured. Now, Spring Cloud Contract uses rest assured to verify your contract file. So when it turns your YAML file into a test case, it's going to use rest assured. It's going to use your base class to do all of this setup of ensuring that the environment is at a steady state. And then you have to tell it how to find it. So what I want to do is say rest assured.base URI is equal to http://localhost : and then port. And so that's all this is doing right now. It's just telling rest assured hey, we are going to hit that port, this URL, and you're going to be getting a response from there. And that's it. Now, oh, you're so kind, aren't you? And return flux.just. Man. When repo.find all, I mean, like, is repo even, yeah, I get it. I must have, order comma UUID, I must have did it backwards. Yeah. Yeah, I know, it's Tuesday. I mean, you guys, come on. Like, it's Tuesday. It's literally Tanzu Tuesday. It's Taco Tuesday. I have tacos on my mind. I actually have tamales in my refrigerator, but I'm dying to eat. Now, I'm done with this base test. Now, remember, this base test only ever needed to set up the stage for actual tests. It didn't need to do anything else, just setting up the stage, because what I'll show you next is I'm going to go into my terminal, and I'm going to say maven clean install. Maven clean install. So maven clean install is going to take that YAML file and that Groovy file. It's going to compile it. It's then going to execute a remote server test against my service based off of what I put in that YAML file. I will show you what that test looks like since it gets transpiled from YAML to actual Java rest assured code. But once that happens, once it's passed, if it passes, it will install a jar file that has a wiremock configuration file in it. There is then another part of our demonstration in which we take that artifact and we test it against a client that may or may not have anything to do with this. So I'm going to show you that as well, and then that'll be it. And let's see what happens. So which one of y'all failed? Oh yeah, validate test all order fetch. Okay, so that's a good one. All order fetch. So that failed because it's clear, very, very clear. Parameter 0 of order arrest requires a single bean, but 2 were found. Order repository MongoDB defined as null. Reactive Mongo repository defined as null. Action: consider marking one of the beans as primary. Oh, okay. So let's go back into base class, and let's give it a whirl. Let's say mock bean, reactive Mongo repository, order UUID is a repository. So it's a mock bean, and we were able to mock it out, right? So yeah, we mocked it out. Was there something else that I needed? The repository got found. Have my routers. Repo. Why don't? Oh, I shouldn't have more than one bean in here. So why were 2 found? Order repository MongoDB was found in null. Active Mongo repository defined in null. I don't like the way that looks. All right, so we'll do the following. We'll do order repository MongoDB. There we go. So maybe that's why. Maybe it just said, hey, I don't know what's going on here. I'm going to go ahead and try to wire one of them. But because, yeah, this guy, I don't have any configurations in here. I'm not sure why it's giving me problems. Then again, it is Tuesday. So let's see. What else have I done wrong this time? What have I done incorrectly or imprecisely? Since this test has to get executed like a billion times a year.
Does your 4K monitor show you exactly what it should be doing?
Oh, it's compiling. So I'm just writing yeah, it should know. I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe
it's a 4K monitor. That's what the 4K is for. Oh,
the 4K is for that. Yeah. Well, the 4K helps me actually like say that I have 4K.
Got
yeah, you get it? Like
it's like 4K.
4K, dog.
Yeah. I've got a neighbor. She walks up and down the street twice a day. Her name is Kay. So is it 4K?
Is it 4K or is it K? Good question. Okay, so it still fails. All right, so I got that one failure still, right? What is that? Contract verifier test application. Oh, that's the problem. Because in my tests, I originally stipulated that I wanted only application JSON, and the new default type is application JSON, not application JSON UTF-8. Application JSON UTF-8 was like in Spring 2.0, 2.1. Now I noticed since 2.2, I guess, 2.1.2, that it has gone to application JSON. I need to ask about that encoding type. But yeah, the encoding type was the application JSON UTF-8 in my YAML file, and my configuration file was actually not going to emit application JSON UTF-8. It was just going to give application JSON. I know. So let this compile and run. And what this is going to do is emit that one artifact that I talked about. And then I'm going to do something interesting. I'm going to not use Java for a second, and I'm going to do everything from the command line. So I'll just check over with the terminal, and I'll start executing the what I would like to do is test the contract. And because this contract is a deployable unit, I can take it anywhere I want it. In this case, I'm going to take it out of my Maven class path. That is my Maven repository. And then I'm going to essentially execute it on the fly. So look at the line here. Since this test's passed, look at the line here and installed something called service snapshot stubs. So that is actually the thing that we're going to use to test. But before you know, you don't need to know anything about the actual jar file artifact. What you need to know for Spring Cloud Contract is something called the Spring Cloud Contract locator format. And so I'm going to give it to you now, and I'm going to show you what that means. So we're going to get out of the normal Java zone, and we're going to go directly into Spring Cloud Contract mode. And in order to do that, I need to catch up on this little bit of, ooh, did I just kill that terminal? Yeah, sure did. Z history and grep run scc.sh. All right, so because I've created a little script called run scc.sh that basically takes the, you can download the Spring Cloud Contract stub runner, which is this guy here from the Spring Cloud Contract website. Once you take that jar file, you then give it the normal set of parameters that you would in any application. So in this case, the first parameter is stubrunner.stubs_mode, which tells us how do we get the stub that you're gonna tell us about. The way you get the stub is either locally through your M2 directory. You can tell it I have an artifactory, or I have some sort of a external repository, and you can configure that elsewhere. But for now, I'm going to use my local.m2 directory. The stubrunner.id is the actual Maven locator format that I've been wanting to tell you about for the past half a minute. And so that works like this. So if I did run scc.sh, the first argument that I do give it is that coord, $coord, which is a Maven coordinate. So in this case, it's going to be com. Let's make sure that we get that right. The coordinate, the artifact ID is going to be com demo Tanzu, and then the the group ID is com demo Tanzu. The artifact ID is service, and then after service comes the version. So you can put any version you want. If you're working on the current version, if you're all working on the current head of the build, just use plus, and that gives you the current head of the build, and then put it on port. The last argument, delimited by a colon, is the port. In this case, I'm going to use port 8099. And as soon as I hit enter, that script will run. It'll do java jar run release.jar, and then it'll put stubrunner.stub mode, and then it'll stick the coordinates into the stubrunner.ids, which is that argument that I just gave it. So in about a second, I should have a server running on port 8099. And I'm going to make no haste, make no waste. I'm going to haste to make no waste in order to curl localhost :8099/all. And I got the answer that I was looking for in the first place, which was that one valve item for Half-Life 3. Apparently, that's going to be the SKU for Half-Life 3. So if you guys are here and you're just not listening to this, yes, that's right. Half-Life 3 has been confirmed. I am confirming it right here. Send me checks to Rob Brinley. Rob, give them your address. They're going to send you money for Half-Life 3 when it comes out, because you're the one who will herald the new age of Half-Life 3, along with Spring Boot 3. So the request wasn't matched. So if you notice that this server also gets configured with a pretty cool actuator-like plugin that basically tells you which URLs are available. So if you found a stub and you're like, oh, what stub is this? You can just hit the root page and it'll give you that little informative, here's what I know about. But other than that, you can just hit it like normal and you get an all. Now, let's move on. Let's close this project, or let's not close this project. Let's open up another project. Let's do something a little bit more hairy.
Let's close the project.
Yes. Let's go into Bootiful testing. And then I'm going to open up a project that's going to be a really simple client for the same exact thing that we have earlier just now. So I'm going to say Tanzu 512. I'm going to go with my client code. And then I'm going to say, hey. Hello? Wow, it is really quiet in here.
What do you want? Just kidding.
Would you like us to make some noise?
Yeah, I love noise. Oh, man. Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to open up our client. And all our client's going to do is it's going to use an HTTP call out to make a RESTful call. We're going to use this window because we don't care about the service project. We have the service project now. You have seen the contract and work outside of the purview of a JVM, right? Now let's look at that contract in the purview of a JVM, because eventually you're going to want to be able to test these things against a JVM. Am I not right? Probably. Am I not correct? Probably also.
Only if you ask questions that you know they want answers to.
Yes, exactly. What is the average wind velocity of a speckled sparrow?
Unladen swallow. What do you mean? African or European?
Yes. That's usually the question I get during these demos is like, do you know anything about swallows? No? Well,
it's not a matter of what grips it. How does a 6-ounce swallow carry a 1-pound coconut?
I think you're going to have to tell me that one, dude. I don't even know. That doesn't sound right. Okay. I'm just going to sit right here and I'm going to sit in a fetal position. There is no pain.
And no dog to lick your wounds, because Ferris.
Oh man, my dog left me. You know, my dog, my dog is fickle. You know, my dog doesn't give a damn. Unless I've got food for him, I might as well not exist. Does that sound sad to you?
It sounds like a cat.
Oh, yeah, my dog is half cat, by the way. He thinks he's a cat. He sits on the floor all day long and rests. He doesn't do anything. He literally rests.
Which half? The front half or the back half?
Both. But he's cute all the way around.
Down the middle. Yeah, down the middle. Like
yeah,
the left side is half cat and the right side is half dog.
No, he's cat. He like just thinks he's a dog. He's like, look, I look like a dog, but I'm a cat. And then he just looks at me like, ha ha ha. He has that look of shame too. He'll just like shame me. Like, you didn't give me any treats? How dare you? Okay, so what we're going to want to do here is, thank you guys. Web environment needs to be set to none because what we're going to do is we're going to let Spring Boot stub. We're going to let auto configure stub runner do the chore for us. So we're going to say and web environment equals Spring Boot test.web environment.none. And that's going to tell Spring, hey, don't bring up a web environment, okay? And then we're going to say auto configure stub runner. And auto configure stub runner is going to do something like this. It's going to say, hey, I need IDs. Remember that IDs thing that I had earlier that you don't see anymore because apparently it got banned. Really? Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay. See, so we need one of these. We need to be able to configure that guy there into there. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to say IDs is equal to demo Tanzu :service +, 8099. And that's our artifact ID. That's our Maven locator. So that Spring Cloud Contract knows how to receive our artifact. And then we need to tell it the stubs mode. And in this case, we want local. And we can just let it guess for us. Stubs mode, stub runner property, stub mode.local is the thing that we're going to use here. And then we're going to need to actually write some tests because at the end of this particular update, or if you didn't do anything right now and just ran it, all it'll do is it'll just start up the stub runner and exit really quickly. But now we want to test it. So let's do auto wired, and let's say private late init var client colon. Let's call this guy an order client because, you know, order client. Oh, we don't have an order client yet. I guess we're gonna have to create one, aren't we? Yeah, we are. We just created one, guys. We just created an order client here, and our order client actually takes a web client as a parameter. So web client colon web client, right? There we are. And we're gonna write a function called getAll. Oh, this is like really not supposed to happen this way. Because you probably know that you're not supposed to like do anything in tests until you actually need to test it. So why are you testing it, right? That's how that usually works. It's like, don't do that until you're ready to test it. So I'm not going to do anything until I'm ready to test it. There. No, the first thing I'm going to do is test it. I'm going to write a test for it, and I'm going to say function should get all, and we get to use step verifier here because the reason why I'm using step verifier is because I'm testing the client, and I'm not using the web test client, and I'm not able to test the web service directly using a web test client because I want to test my client. So I have to use step verifier in order to test that. So I'm going to say, hey, step verifier, create a client, create a stream, or start up a stream based off of the thing coming out of client dot get all, right? And get all doesn't return a unit here. It should return a flux of order, right? So we also need the idea behind an order. So let's do this. Let's do case class. Ooh, not case class, that's Scala. Data class, order, val ID, UUID, val item, string, val quantity, integer, right? Okay. Ooh. One day we're going to be sitting here using Java 19, typing in case class record, and somebody's going to go, boom, what the hell are you talking about, boy? Flux that just nothing. So this is going to return nothing for now, right? And that's fine. We don't care about anything else. So in this case, yeah, we have what we know, and we say assert next, and then I'm going to use assert J again because I like assert J a whole lot. If you guys don't like assert J, let me know if there's something else. But I used Hamcrest on Maki. I used Hamcrest for a while. I love Hamcrest, but honestly, I think that Hamcrest does get very nitty gritty, and it does allow you to do some really, really cool things for testing. But I don't see every. I find that it's much more verbose, right? And so I would only use it like when I need that level of guarantee, that level of testing. So in this case, I just want to assert that it's not null, and it has no null fields or properties, and has field or property with the values, because I want to make sure that the value is like at least something. I want to make sure that it's got a valve in it, and like I want that Half-Life 3 now, guys. Has field or property with value quantity QTY, and that needs to be 3 because I want Half-Life 3, not Half-Life 1 or 2. I played Half-Life 1. I have a very old graphics card, and honestly, it's fun, but it just made me want to play more video games, and that's not fair because now I'm doing this on Twitch, and this is all about video games, and here I am talking about Half-Life 3. Very depressing life. Very depressing. All right, so now we have a full test. What we probably want to do is, I guess I can do this. I guess we can like get test. Let's just test it. See what happens. Well, that's not going to work because what's the problem? Cannot autowire. You guys have nothing in here. And the reason why that doesn't autowire is because I need to add a bean. Its companion. You ever watched A-Team, you guys? Because
Of course.
it was one of my favorite shows.
Murdoch, Mr. T, also known as
Murdoch. Who's Murdoch?
Murdoch was the crazy one, right?
Murdoch is from Gorillaz.
B.A. Baracus. That was right. I was trying to get that one.
So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to wire in a copy of Web Client because in order to do that, we don't actually, it's gonna give us an error. It's gonna say, hey, you don't have a Web Client wired in, so why don't you have one? So we're gonna do it here since Spree won't do it for us, and that's good because how many times do you want something giving you instances that you don't actually ask for? And I try to avoid that as much as possible nowadays. Auto wiring is good, but not all the time. Alrighty, so now we have an application that will give us a web client at start, and then we can start saying things like order client has a web client, and does order client also need to be a stereotype? Maybe, it could be. Do we need to stereotype it with anything? What do you think? Configuration or component? I mean, we could do that. You can do it that way. You can, and now we'll be found on the class path, and so that should just work. It should just work like Apple says. But let's run it and see what happens. Now, remember, this is an SSD with like maybe half a terabyte of SSD, and I also have 16 gigs of. Is it 16 gigs of RAM on here? I have only have 4 processors though.
And a 4K TV.
Yeah, I have 4 processors running at 2.2 gigahertz. I have a 4K monitor and a discrete graphics card with 1.5 gigabytes of video RAM on it, and this thing is still wheezing. I just don't understand. Like, how did I ever get anything done back in the day when I had like one processor that was under a gigahertz and no discrete graphics? I don't understand, man. Just wondering.
You are running 4 Kubernetes clusters on your laptop, so that could be.
Oh, yeah. I'm running Slack in Chrome. I forget. You're right. You're right about that. All right. So what's this error we got? So we got expectation failed on next actual incomplete. You know why? It's because there was nothing in there. In other words, exert the client.getAll asserted next, but it returned nothing. So order client. Oh yeah, all right. Yeah, it's flux.just. Well, you guys, now you know. If you're gonna write any code, if you're gonna write a code that fails, know what the failure is for and how to fix it really fast so that you don't do it. So you're not asking yourself, what did I just do wrong? But I didn't do anything wrong. Actually, this is fine. Now remember, this is TDD, so we only go as far as we can before we get to the next failure, and we're back in production over here. So let's do that. Let's fill in production, and let's go web client dot get dot URI, and then we're going to hard code http://localhost:8099 /all, and I believe I spelled web client correctly, but I didn't put a val in front of it, so it has no idea how to address it. Thank you very much. Retrieve, and that basically says body to flux order class .java. Alrighty, and that's it. So basically we said, hey, web client, go ahead and get http localhost 8099 all, retrieve it, do the web exchange, and then turn the body into a flux of just orders. Because we only ever expected JSON payload to come out of it. If anything else came out of it, we'd get a bunch of errors. Or if anything was wrong with the JSON payload, say order had a different mismatch. Maybe our impedance mismatch happened. Whereas instead of item, somebody put product, right? That happens. And these cloud contracts are supposed to save you from things like that, where you have impedance mismatches against clients and services, producers and consumers. All right, so there we go. So that works. All right, so awesome. So what we just figured out was we can test our contract in Java. We can test our contract in any language for that matter, on the command line even. But just know that they're testable. And remember that article that I sent you earlier, but I showed you guys earlier, you're going to want to see that later on because it tells you how to do the same testing formula, but for any language. So that you don't have to like, use a language specific test. You can just go ahead and use our Docker container and spin it up that way. Now, let's go back to our little slideshow.
Hey Mario, let's wrap it up.
We're wrapping it up now.
Wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. We're on hour 2 now of our show here.
Awesome. All right, so that's it. That's actually everything I needed to show you. But the only thing is I don't know how to make my windows like display correctly. Give me a second. I know it's in here somewhere. I know it is. Like, where did you go? Okay, well, stop share. Okay, screen share. All right, so that's it. But let me go back to one more thing to show you guys, because like honestly, not everything is completely clear. It could be clearer, but I have a feeling that it might be clearer than a midsummer night in Maine, or maybe a midsummer night in Martha's Vineyard, which is pretty darn foggy, I heard. All right, so end of demo time. We finished the demo. Here are my team members. You guys gotta all take a picture of this and go ahead and tweet these people. These people are amazing. Tweet them. Tweet them all. Tweet them and mention them. Tweet them and mention them now. Okay. And we're going to shut down this talk. Remember, I put that GitHub link up here. It's github.com/marios-code-path/Bootiful testing. Hit up my website. It's sudoinet5.com. It's https://www. And then there is a demo chat. You probably want to look at that later. It's got some really cool stuff in it.
Are these supposed to be slides that we can see, buddy?
Oh no, you can't see those slides.
We just see the demo time slide.
What? Wait, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Oh, okay. So this is everybody that you need to say hi to. And these are all the people. These are like half the people on the team, or like most of the people on the team. But the people that matter.
Ouch!
Whoa! Well, these are the people that matter that have been there since at least January or February.
Sure. Okay.
Now, Tiffany Jenigan is new. She has. I haven't had a chance to put it out. I just got outed by Tiffany here. So Tiffany, I owe you one there. Paul's on here, and so is Bob. And I'm not on here. So hey, Tiffany, I'm not on there either. I forgot why I didn't put myself on there. But here's a GitHub links. Here's my website link, and there's Demo Chat, which is a longer running project that takes us through TDD and Agile and services and microservices and data streaming and everything else. Alrighty, questions? No, there's a picture of Prince saying goodbye to everybody and a whole lot of links. So yes, when you have links on the page, and when you have Prince on the page, when you have Tom Hanks on the page who has COVID or who had COVID. T. Hanks, get it? Nobody got that. Nobody gets T. Hanks. Okay.
I get it.
COVID-19 Hanks. We loved him. Okay. Goodbye. Thank you very much. Send me your questions.
Thank you very much, Mario. This was so much fun. I appreciate you, my friend. I hope you and the family are well. Obviously, we saw Ferris, but
Ferris booked on me. He so Ferris just took off on me. He doesn't care about me. Ferris just said, "Hey Mario, like we have some food, right?" And he just I felt him staring a freaking burning behind my head. Dog.
That's all right. That's what dags do.
Ferris, I've got some meat. Everybody. Ferris.
With that,
look, here he comes. Definitely... Here he comes. Here he comes. He was in the bathroom. He was hiding right here. Get up here. Come here. Come on. Come here. Come here. Come here. Look at you.
Dog life.
Look at him.
Oh.
Look at him. This guy.
I like
right,
the
I'm gonna send you off with the corn cut as well. It's we'll see where it is next week. We'll see where it is. I'm not gonna touch it.
I've got a similar hairline to you. I was brushing my hair today, and I found that I have that same hairline.
Power
I was
alleys.
kind of yeah. What are they called?
Power alleys. I don't know. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching again. Shout out to all our regulars: the Java Grout, the Sweet Killer Nines, the Spencer Gibbs, the Brian McLeans, Who else am I forgetting? Categoric new 252. That's new. Gorilla Vera, nice. All right. Anyway, we appreciate everybody and all of your time. And tune in next week when we have Cora Iberclyde, fun name, and also amazing lady who's going to share with us. I don't have exactly what she's going to share with us, but it's going to be awesome. And I know it's going to be about some Kubernetes stuff. So
I believe she's going to be going
Container
through
building.
some container best practices and stuff. So
yes, that's right. Container
taking a
best
step
practices. Or
back from Kubernetes, talking about how to build really good, solid Docker containers, and then stepping into Kubernetes and showing how they can then play in the Kubernetes world.
And you're only as good as your other MCs. And so thank you for that, Paul and Tiffany.
You're welcome.
The save. All right.
All your power went with your hair.
I'm like,
no! And he shaved his face too, so that's just like a lot of power that's gone.
You got
everything to
Samson,
nothing.
sir.
Yeah.
You got Samson.
That's Samson, son.
Ooh,
all right,
Samson.
my friends. Mario,
That's a
thank
Bible
you again.
reference, right?
Awesome. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Paul and Tiffany.
Thank you, Biblesaurus.
Talk to you all later.
Bye.
Pieces.